Welcome to the podcast. I'm Jeff Magnuson. This is episode 22. As I mentioned in the last episode, I'm going to continue on with addressing popular questions that I get asked through TikTok, Instagram, or my website. And before I go on, I just want to make mention, over the last couple of months, I've been updating my book, Get the Right Job, same title as this podcast. It's available on Amazon. It's an A to Z guide for job seekers. Talks about mindset, talks about interview preparation, resume writing, cover letter writing, LinkedIn optimization. Check it out. It's $10, paperback and ebook. Get the Right Job, or you could just enter my name into the Amazon search and you'll see it. A question that came up recently was, I was contacted by a recruiter and they kept the details and the name of the company private. Is this shady? The answer is probably not, but it depends. There are a lot of companies when they post jobs, they want it kept quiet for various reasons. Maybe they don't want their competitors to know. Maybe they don't want to get flooded with resumes. They don't want to appear as if they're searching for certain types of roles. Whatever it might be, it's their right to keep it quiet if they wish. But there comes a time when, as a candidate, you have to know who this company is so you could prepare for the interview accordingly. But it also puts you in the situation where when you're talking to a recruiter, presumably a third-party external recruiter, do you trust them enough to hand over your resume? You want to get them on the phone. If they reach out to you on LinkedIn or your email or something like that, that's fine. But you want to talk to them on the phone and you want to feel them out as best you can to see if handing over your resume is worth your time. Because they may not tell you about the company until the company says, yes, I want to interview this person. It's annoying. I get it. But again, if it sounds enticing and you trust the recruiter, you know, a little bit, you can go for it. Worst case, they have your resume. It's not ideal because you don't want to just hand it over willy-nilly like that. You want to be very careful with who has your resume. But that's why you want to talk to them on the phone and not just rely on some sort of an email exchange back and forth. If you're not sure, don't send your resume. Because there are some recruiters out there who will fish for clients to try to gauge, okay, can I build up a database of people I know are looking or are interested in this type of role so I can reach out to them next time when a similar role becomes available. It happens, and it's hard to judge, but that's the reason to be a little bit uncertain or hesitant. The role may not even exist. Now, if you hand over your resume and they say they want to interview you, then this recruiter has to be 100% transparent with you so you can prepare accordingly for the interview. If they're still withholding information or being shady about it in some way, just walk away. It's very likely not worth your time if they're not going to set you up for success for that interview. And also, you need to know where you're interviewing to see if you're even interested in the company. Is it shady? Could be, probably not, but just approach it cautiously. Another comment that I received during a phone screen, the interviewer was really not nice, didn't give me a chance to ask questions, but they did actually move me along to have a video call with somebody else the next week. Should I go? The answer is yes, because if this was just a phone screen with HR or a recruiter, they're not necessarily indicative of what that company is like. They could be, but you don't necessarily need to be turned off by somebody who's just conducting a very routine phone screen. They could be doing like 30 of these a day. And they're just cranking them out so they don't leave time for questions. Maybe they're having a bad day. You never know, so you don't want to read into things too much. Really, the person who matters most when you are interviewing is the hiring manager, your future manager. That's the relationship that you want to have. And you want that conversation to be meaningful and positive. The HR person or the recruiter you will likely never speak to again or very rarely speak to. So don't be put off. It's not great. They should be more self-aware of how they're coming across to people. But until you start meeting with actual people on the team, especially your future boss, I wouldn't worry about it too much. And by the way, as an aside, in the absolute worst case scenario during any type of interview, if somebody is incredibly rude or pushy or asking questions that they should not be asking you, like if you have a family, where you're from, things like that, you can always leave. You can always hang up the phone. You can always end the video chat. You always have that option. You never, ever have to sit through an unprofessional or a contentious type of meeting if the other side isn't holding up their own. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Hopefully that never happens to you, but you always have that option. Another question somebody came up to me about was, I was invited for a Zoom interview, but they didn't turn on their camera. This is ugly. If you're going to invite somebody to a video interview, you turn on your camera or you have the interview over the phone. And as a job seeker, if you're invited to a Zoom or Skype or Teams or whatever video interview and they don't turn on their camera, feel free to turn yours off. Or you can show up to the interview without your camera on to see if theirs is on, then you can quickly switch it on. These are business meetings and you deserve to be treated with respect. If somebody's calling for a video interview, their camera is on too, period. Another question I got, I gave 2 weeks notice and coworkers keep asking me where I'm going and why I'm leaving. I don't know what to do. Really, the short answer is it's none of their business. You could just tell them, I'll tell you after I leave the company, or I'm not comfortable talking about where I'm going, or some kind of an answer to get them off your back. You don't owe anybody an explanation when you're leaving. You don't even owe the company you're currently at an explanation of where you're going. All you really owe them is the courtesy, the professional courtesy to let them know that you're leaving the company. And if you can give 2 weeks, then you give 2 weeks. It's the right thing to do. Sometimes people have contracts where they have to give a month or more. That's fine. Other companies, they don't have a policy. And if you feel like you're going to be escorted out once you give notice, then you give notice on your last day. But as far as nosy coworkers or people who you're just not comfortable sharing any kind of personal information with, don't. And finally, there's the salary ping pong game where a company's not posting the salary range on a job description. They're asking you what is your range, and you are discovering more and more about the role once you start talking to people. This happened to a client of mine. She discovered that she's going to be managing 10 direct reports. That was not in the job description, and she had no idea. She's open to doing that, but it's really difficult for her to come up with a base salary range based on this new information. So she was saying, I want to talk to the hiring manager because I want to learn more about this role. And the external recruiter is like, well, I need to know your range to see if we're going to move on in the process and if it's even worth our time. My advice to her was, look, you have to get the recruiter on the phone, forget email for these types of conversations, and explain to him or her that you need more information. You'll be happy to provide a range, but you need to speak to the hiring manager to learn more about this role, because the information that you have currently is simply not enough. If the recruiter should come back and be stubborn and say, no, that's unacceptable or whatever, try to find the hiring manager on your own. Through LinkedIn, through the website, whatever it might be, try to find that person and send them a note. Just go around the recruiter and tell them the situation, saying, right now my candidacy is being held up because the recruiter's looking for a base salary range that I'm not comfortable giving because I don't know enough about the role. And that person's response or non-response will also be very telling, because what you're asking for is reasonable. You just want more time to learn more about the role. New information came just from speaking with the recruiter that wasn't even on the job description. So if they're going to play games, or if they are not realizing that asking somebody for a salary range with limited information is unprofessional and not realistic, then maybe that company's not for you. But before giving up, I would go after the hiring manager and let him or her know the situation. So hopefully you can just have a professional discussion and then provide the relevant information to see if there's mutual interest still. That's it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Any questions, please drop me a line. TikTok, Ask Jeff. Instagram, Ask Jeff Magnuson. My website, jeffmagnusonconsulting.com. There's links below. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.